Thank you again, Daryl. Well, things are getting closer to the end in numerous ways. We're looking. Today is what, day 6 now of the feast, and it just flies by so quickly. So anyway, my message today is entitled Tribulation Timeline. I don't know that I'm actually going to be bringing a lot of new information. For some people, yes, some of this will be new. And I think that each and every one of us will have the opportunity to be prodded to think some things maybe a little differently, and that's okay. But my purpose on this, again, it's not my purpose. Yahweh was the one that gave me the message. But the purpose on this is, again, so many people have heard so much about the tribulation. This is going to happen, that's going to happen. But I don't know that I've ever seen where someone has done a timeline saying this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. So this is what this message is today. Now we're going to cover the 7-year period of the tribulation. But we're going to go just a slight bit beyond that. And you'll see what I mean when we get there. So as Daryl said, we're going to take a small break in the middle. We've got lunch in there. If it's ready, we could go ahead and take that time to eat. If not, we'll just have to take a few-minute break, let everybody have a chance at the bathroom, and go from there. Anyway, so let's jump into this quickly and see what we can come up with. First of all, we know that the tribulation, this is from Daniel 9, it talks about a week, and it talks about a 7-year period. Now, that entire period is called the tribulation. However, the last 3.5 years are what's called the Great Tribulation. Now, I'm not going to turn to that particular verse. We've covered it 3 times already during the feast here. I want to keep moving on. Okay. So, the beginning of the 7 years, and I want to turn to Matthew 24. Matthew 24, we're going to go verses 3 through 14. Matthew 24, 3 through 14. Now, as Yeshua sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Now, Yeshua could have given a real short, quick answer, but he didn't. Yeshua answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Messiah,' and will deceive many." And ironically, that can actually be understood 2 different ways, because there are people that have come and called themselves the Messiah. But there's also the aspect, many have come preaching the Messiah and still deceiving many. Okay, so it could be either way. Anyway, many will come in my name, saying, "I am the Messiah," and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines, pestilences, earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you. And you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended. They will betray one another and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. It's interesting that we're fixing to go to Revelation 6. So let's go there right quick. Revelation chapter 6. Now we just got done reading Matthew 24. Okay. Revelation 6, starting in verse 1. Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a voice like thunder, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out, conquering and to conquer. The second one. When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, "Come and see." Another horse, fiery red, went out. And it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword. So we know that the first one, as we've seen, that the white horse has a lot to do with religion. Okay? White is usually associated with purity, just like the second one is the red horse. Red is usually associated with blood and war and what have you. Now it's interesting that, and we're going to go to it much later in the study, but Revelation 19, Christ shows up on a white horse. Christ is wearing many crowns. This one, he had a crown that was given to him. Christ has a sword that comes out of his mouth to destroy the enemy. This guy has a bow. So we know that this isn't Christ. This is and I'm going to use the term, a false religion, a false Christ. And a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. And we're going to cover that, the conquering part of it, later in the study. We'll mention it. We may not spend a lot of time on it, but I'll mention it. But as we go down, the first one is the white horse, which has to do with I'm going to use false religion. Number 2, war, the red horse. Number 3, when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures say, "A quart of wheat for a denarius." And by the way, a denarius was a full day's wages for a worker back there. Imagine having to work all day for one little amount of wheat to feed you and your family. But a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. When he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature saying, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And the name of him who sat on it was Death, and the grave followed with him. And power was given to them over 1/4 of the earth, to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. 1/4 in these first 4 seals, 1/4 of the earth's population will be wiped out. That is a lot of people. Okay, let's go into the 5th seal. When he opened the 5th seal, and we'll come back to this here in a few minutes, but I want to just go through them. When he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest or stay dead a little while longer, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. Okay? The 6th seal. I looked, and when he opened the 6th seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. And the stars of heaven fell to the earth, as a fig tree drops its late figs when it's shaken by a mighty wind. And the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand?" A number of years ago, I was at the feast actually, and we were talking about things that we're looking at happening. Scripture talks about happening. And the question was raised, where are we right now? And so, being that Matthew 6 starts out with the first seal, we actually started looking at it. Well, where would we be at that moment? Okay, where would we be with the seals? Okay, with the seals, it's interesting because Has there been false religion? Yeah. How far back? Well, we know before the flood, maybe all the way to Adam and Eve themselves. We don't know. We don't know precisely on that. Okay? The second one, war. How long has war been around? Well, let's see. Cain killed Abel. That was the first murder, and it's escalated since then. How about the third one? Okay? The black horse. We're talking like famine. It's happened so many times in history. Are we in the third seal? You see where I'm getting at. How do you pin it down as to a time frame on these? The fourth seal is basically pestilence. Okay? If you look at it from another viewpoint, how often are wars fought in the name of religion? What is the aftermath of a war? Famine. When you break that food chain and the people have nothing to eat, whether it be whether it be by planned through because of an army or whatever, sometimes they'll go in and destroy all the crops and everything just so you don't have nothing to eat, or just the aftermath of a war. And then after you have the famine, then you have pestilence coming in. So you can see a progression in all these. But I want to show you something else. We just got done reading the first 6 seals. We also just got done reading Matthew 24. Yeshua answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Messiah,' and will deceive many." False religion. "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in various places." Everything that we've just read with the seals was the very first part of Matthew 24. But how about we read the cry of the martyrs, Well, let's see. "Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, and because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold." That covers all 6 of the seals. But when does it start? When does it start? I believe, personally, that it starts at the beginning of the tribulation era. These things have gone on since the history of mankind. But when you read here in Matthew 24 and Revelation 6, it's not talking about the history of mankind. It's talking about a singular point in time that this is fulfilled. Again, this is where I believe that these 6 seals will be opened in that first 3.5 years of the tribulation. Now, I understand that there may be discussion on this, and that's fine. I'm all for that. But I'm going to keep going. Remember we read in Daniel 9:27, I'm not turning there at the moment, but that's where he said that covenant is made with many for a week. Okay? So this covenant is made with these people for a full 7-year period. Okay? Now, we mentioned it the other day, but I'll bring it up again. Is it only talking about the Jews, or is it talking about other religions too? Because we know that numerous religions want to do sacrificing. Is it talking about nations that want to do it? Possibly. Is witchcraft involved? Yes, I believe it is. Okay. Even today we see Ishtar, Molech, all of these ones we read about in the Old Testament. There's a resurgence going on right now with all of those, to where that worship is starting to be pushed on people. Just as an example, look at TV right now. Almost everything with Disney always is concerned about witchcraft somewhere. Magic, witchcraft, everything. Okay. Disney is not the only one. They are pushing this evil worship on the world. Our whole, look at how many movies are based around this theme. The one that just pops to mind right now is called The Fifth Element. Had Bruce Willis in it, a long time ago. But it had elemental magic all the way throughout the entire thing. It's called Wicca. The entire show was based around it. And it was a very popular movie for a while. But we're seeing a lot of movies that have the witchcraft, have Gaia, have Wicca. They have Buddha. They have all these different things that are pushing religion other than Christianity. Okay? Now, when it talks about the covenant that will be made with many, the covenant will start as a verbal agreement, but it's likely that it'll have a written contract of some sort as well. Okay? And again, once you open the door for one, you're opening the door for all. Okay? The temple being built, however, I asked a question one time. How long would it take for the Jews to build the temple if they were given permission to be there to build it? There's a lot of people say, oh, well, with heavy equipment, they might be able to get it done in a year or two. No. Every single part of that has already been prepared. Every block that is needed to build the temple has already been quarried and is ready. These pieces are spread throughout the world. The last I heard, there were 11 red heifers that are in different parts of the world, so that some terrorist group can't come in and just kill the red heifer. So they have all of this, the priestly vestments, they have all the, why is it, for instance, the Jews for so many decades were into things like jewelry stores or things where they handled a lot of gold and silver? There was a reason for that. Okay? They were able to put their hands on a lot of gold because we know that according to the Old Testament in the Torah, that you had the bronze laver, you had the golden candlesticks. I mean, you had so much that was either precious or semi-precious metals. They have been able to put everything together. They even have the priesthood thoroughly trained so that at a moment's notice they can step into their role and do it. Okay. How long would it take knowing that every block is quarried? Well, technically, as fast as they could bring it in, they could have it built. Being in construction, as I've been for so many decades, I'm amazed where something that might take me, with help, 6 months to build a house, the Amish and the Mennonites can go in and build it in a week. Where it might take me 2 months to build a barn, they can have it in days. They have the skill, they have the ability, they can put everything together very quickly. They work very well together. These Jews will be the very same thing. I truly believe that if they really wanted to and had the opportunity, they could have the temple built and operational within 6 to 9 months. When you think about it, that is quick. Okay? Now, all these other religions that are wanting to do sacrifices, they also will probably have animal sacrifices, but only one, the temple in Jerusalem, will be dedicated to Yahweh. Every other temple will be dedicated to demons. That's why the Antichrist will have his sights on Jerusalem to defile it, because the other ones are already defiled. He doesn't have to do that. Okay? Now, The next point, the gospel of the kingdom will be actively preached. We read that in Matthew 24:14. Throughout the tribulation, the gospel of the kingdom will be actively preached. I believe that the rest of the gospel will be too. But what is it that everybody is going to be preaching when they preach the gospel of the kingdom? The fact that mankind's rule under Satan is coming to an end. It's almost here. Be ready or be outside. That's what it's basically going to be about in a thumbnail. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians 2. If I get ahead of you guys, I've got tabs on my Bible so I can turn to this a little faster, so don't get frustrated if I start reading ahead of time. 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 3 and 4. It says, "Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God." Okay? But it's talking about a falling away will happen. Falling away from what? True belief. Who cares if you're falling away from Buddhism? You know, that makes no sense. Why would it be in our scripture about another religion? No, this is talking about true worship of Yahweh. There's going to be a lot of people. Remember where we read in Matthew 24, it says, many will hate you, they will betray you, that, you know, you'll be killed, scourged in the synagogues, you know, all this stuff. Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of people that thought, you know, I'm out of here. That's what their attitude is going to be. They're going to take a little bit of rejection, maybe a little bit of persecution, maybe even just a little bit of pain and suffering. But it says, you have to be faithful to the end. Remember, he said that right before he said this gospel of the kingdom would be preached. We have to be faithful, no matter what we have to go through. If our focus is truly on Yahweh, we have to be faithful. Okay? So this great falling away will happen. And I mentioned Matthew 24, that's verses 9 through 13, but I want to look at something else that has to do with this falling away. Okay? Revelation 3, starting in verse 14. Revelation 3, starting in verse 14. And we're going to go verses 14 through 16. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Well, I will, but not quite yet. It says, "And to the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, these things says the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God. I know your works, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either cold or hot. But because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew you out of my mouth." Okay, for those who refuse to make a decision will be made for them. Okay, and this is why it's so important for each and every single one of us. Choose this day who you will serve. No matter what you have to go through, choose this day. Okay, Daryl mentioned it the other day about what they're promising us. You know, I don't remember exactly how you put it, but you were talking about how you know, the Constitution will be upheld. That, you know, all of these things that would be great things if you take the mark of the beast. Okay, you have to go along with their system to do it. For those of us that refuse to go along with the system, when things start getting tough, there are going to be some people that will walk away. Walk away from Christ, walk away from God. Okay? And this is where I wonder if this, where we just read in Revelation 3, will happen. But I'm going to read I'm going to read on from verse 16. I'm going to go 17 through 21. Okay, starting in verse 17. Because you say, I am rich, have become wealthy, and have need of nothing, and do not know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined in the fire, that you may be rich, and white garments, that you may be clothed, that the shame of your nakedness may not be revealed, and anoint your eyes with eye salve, that you may see. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Therefore be zealous and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and dine with him, and he with me. To him who overcomes, I will grant to sit with me on my throne, as I also overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. Okay? I'm going to ask a question. Is it possible that we need to, even now, be appealing to our brothers and sisters out here to be overcomers? We're in that lukewarm era. We see it all around us. So many people have a lackadaisical, oh, I'm going to live for the moment type attitude, not thoroughly grounded in any true, real belief. Oh, yeah, that sounds good too. That's a Laodicean attitude. You're neither cold nor hot. So I wonder, again, if that's part of what we're going to be doing even now, is that we need to be appealing to people to make that choice, and once you make it, to stick with it. Okay. Again, let's go back to 2 Thessalonians 2. Now, we read verses 3 and 4. Now we're going to read verses 5 through 8. Now remember that this individual sits in the temple as God, showing himself that he is God. Do you not remember that when I was still with you, I told you these things? And now you know what is restraining, that he may be revealed in his own time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. You know, it's interesting. Throughout the history of mankind, since Christ's being here, Satan has consistently had an individual trained to be the Antichrist throughout that history. These people grow old and die. Somebody else is already being trained. There's somebody right now, or maybe even multiple somebodies, that have already been trained how to do this. But it's been restrained. It has not been allowed to happen yet. But he says the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains, God, will do so until he, Christ, is taken out of the way. Now remember, there's going to be a war on Christianity. They don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear that you have to repent, that you're a bad person. They don't want to hear this. But once basically, and we see that they're going to try to silence Christianity. Is it going to work? No. Because there will consistently be some of us, although they will make war on us, and many Christians will die. Remember, stay dead until the full number of those who will die as you did is complete. So even if we have to die a martyr's death, what does it matter? The only thing that matters is, are we faithful to that very last breath, that very last thought? Okay? It says, and then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. Okay? So at last, that man of sin, Yahweh will no longer restrain it, and that man of sin will be revealed. Do we know who he is yet? No. That time has not been. There is a specific time in this timeline where the beast will be shown to the world. Now, at that point, how many people are going to... he may be on the world scene right now as a leader of some country or something. And I've heard all kinds of different theories. I've even heard people that believe that Trump might be. I don't have any way to disprove it because this individual has not been revealed yet. But he will be. And when he is revealed, we will see him for what he is. Okay? Right now, we know that he's an enemy, but we're not going to see him as an enemy until he is revealed. We will not be able to put a face or a name to him until he is revealed. There are numerous people, I've talked to a lot of people that have told me about different people throughout the world that seem like that they could technically step right into that at this moment. That's exactly what I'm saying. Satan is training numerous people. Time and chance happens to all men. Any of these could die. But the time is coming when the Antichrist will be revealed. Okay. So we've kind of reached a point now. We've gone through the first 3.5 years. And again, I'm looking at the 6 seals, the first 6 seals, as showing what is going to happen during that time period. Matthew 24 shows it, backs it up. Now, we've now come to the 3.5 year point, the abomination of desolation. And it's interesting that when you look in Daniel 9:27, it doesn't call it the abomination of desolation. It's talking the person that causes or makes desolate. The person that makes desolation. So we know that not only is it something literal, the abomination of desolation, but it's also the person that causes it to happen. Now, in approximately 165 BC, the Antiochus Epiphanes was a Greek general, and they invaded Jerusalem, took the temple, and as a Greek general, he went and set up a statue of Zeus in the temple and sacrificed a pig to it, right there in the temple. It so enraged all of the Jews. Now, these were just laid back somewhat people, but it so enraged all of the Jews that every Jew picked up pitchforks, shovels, whatever, and went to war against the Greek army, the leading army in the world at that time. And the Jews decimated it. It so destroyed the Greek army. Now, it's actually referred to as the Maccabean Revolution. It so destroyed the Greek army that they never recovered. So when the Romans took over, they made a very serious decision. They said, we don't dare let that happen to us. So what they did is the Romans, like the temple that Herod had helped to build. Okay, the Romans were all kinds of, okay, we'll tolerate it. We'll allow you to do what you want to do. You're still our slaves, our servants, but we'll allow you this. Because the Romans didn't want to copy the Greek mistake. Now, the reason I bring this up, what is going to be the abomination of desolation? At this point, we really don't know yet. Again, it will be revealed in its time. There have been all kinds of theories. There have been theories about being AI, that there's going to be, all things. But one thing that I find interesting, that this is going to be the greatest, even greater than what Epiphanes did in the Maccabean Revolution. This is going to be something even worse than what he did. And there is one, I'm just going to say this is just one theory out there of what the abomination of desolation could be. They feel that this man of sin is going to put a statue or likeness of Lucifer in the temple and sacrifice a human being to it. Yes, that would trump anything that happened by the Greeks. Yes, that would be so much worse. Am I saying that that's what's going to be? No, I'm just showing it that as an example of what could be. Okay? Because I found that one as a plausible one. Okay. The abomination of desolation we know is the midway point. There's 3.5 years have expired, 3.5 more years are fixing to happen. But in amongst all the chaos and everything that's going to be happening at this time, I'm going to just bring up numerous things that are going to happen at that time and go on. Number one, in Daniel 11, verse 30. I know I covered this the other day, and I'll just real quickly. Daniel 11, verse 30. He says, for ships from Cyprus, which is, it says, I looked that up, and it says Western Europe. Okay, so ships from Cyprus shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved, return in rage against the Holy Covenant. Now, why would he come in against the Holy Covenant? Now, Cyprus itself is Rome. Okay, I find that interesting. Okay, but he returns in rage against the Holy Covenant and does damage. So he shall return and show regard for those who forsake the Holy Covenant. Okay. Verse 31, and forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Epiphanes came in with an army, took the temple away, and set up his abomination of desolation. It's going to be identical to the same thing. This individual comes in with an army, takes the temple away, and defiles it. Because it goes on, he says, they shall defile the sanctuary fortress, then they shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. Okay? It says, those who do wickedly against the covenant he shall corrupt with flattery. But the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. We covered this one on the very first day. Okay? Now, again, I believe truly that we as God's people, maybe not us individually, we may not be alive, but God's people in general will be doing great things. They will be preaching this gospel no matter what is standing in their way. And as we look, that's the whole purpose of the gifts, is to be able to preach that gospel to anyone, anywhere, and not have anything to pretty much stop you. Okay? Now, we've already covered the fact that this man of sin will sit in the temple as God, showing himself that he is God. Now, why would he do that? I mean, he knows he's not God. He knows he's just mortal. Well, remember, he's given all his power, everything from Satan. How many people even today, I mean, we're talking past preachers, televangelists or whatever, but, government leaders, all these people that all of a sudden they think, I am all of this. They attribute power to themselves that they do not have, authority that they were not given. Where is this any different? Now, we know that he'll be able to do all kinds of deceptive signs and wonders, but all this will be through the power of Satan. Again, this kind of makes me wonder about the idea of having a statue to Lucifer. It's possible. Okay. It says, and many will believe the lie. Okay. And this is in 2 Thessalonians 2. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth on quite a few of these because of the fact that a section of verses can show so many different things and we have to take them one at a time. But 2 Thessalonians 2, 9 through 12. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this reason, God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Isn't that what our world's all about right now? Unrighteous pleasure? I mean, we see it everywhere. Everybody's living for the moment. Revelation 13, 1 through 8. It says, I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet were like the feet of a bear, his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And he was given authority to continue for 42 months, 3.5 years. Okay? Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. To me, that sounds like what we read earlier. It really does. Let's go on. When the abomination of desolation is set up in the wilderness, okay, now Yahweh will have a place of safety for some of his people to flee to. Revelation 12. Revelation 12, verse 6. Says verse 6 and says, Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days, 3.5 years. And over in verse 14. It talks about the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth. He persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time, times, and half a time from the presence of the serpent. 3.5 years. So again, we're seeing this, and this happens when? Right after the abomination of desolation is set up. Remember Matthew 24, verses 15 through 20. Matthew 24, 15 through 20. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on the Sabbath. Okay? Verse 21 says, For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor ever shall be again. Okay? So there is a place of safety. But yet it's interesting because later on, and we'll come to it, there are verses that talk about Christ sending out his angels to gather the elect from the four winds. Well, if they're all in one place of safety, they wouldn't have to gather them from the four winds, or from the four corners of the earth. I mean, four corners. So, what I'm saying is that this, when we read about that in Revelation 12, it is not talking all of God's people. It's talking a select group. Is it the 144,000? We don't know. Is it I sometimes wonder, for instance, like, and we talked about this the other day, where God gives gifts because He is the one that chooses the gifts to give you, and He gives you according to what you are able. He knows your potential. Is it possible that that's the same thing that's going to happen here? That there are certain of God's people that are less able to stand strong throughout the entire time, maybe? You know? Disabled people, for instance. Just throwing it out there as one example. Is it possible that He's got this set aside for them? It's possible. I know that one thing is going to be definitely true, and I've talked to numerous people about this. If you cannot get along with your fellow Christians, your fellow brothers and sisters, how do you ever expect to be a part of that group in the wilderness? He's not taking a bunch of people over there just to have chaos. No, these people will be looking to Yeshua. They will be working together. Chaos will not be tolerated. It can't. If everybody is self-centered in the place of safety, are you worried about the enemy without or the enemy within? You know? So, I mean, this is just something to consider. So we also know from Revelation 12 here, in verses 15 and 16. I'm in Matthew 24. Okay, Revelation 12, 15 and 16. It says, "Now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth," okay, where she is nourished for times and half a time from the presence of the serpent. Verse 15, "So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman." These are armies that he is going to send after the woman, after these people that are going to the place of safety. They're fleeing for their very life. They're defenseless. Why not attack them and destroy them? That's Satan's whole purpose to begin with. And this is the dragon that's doing this. Okay? So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. God causes the earth to break open. All of these armies are destroyed. They're gone. Now, it enrages Satan, because here for a moment he thought he had it made. He thought he was going to be victorious. But the people made it to the place of safety. Okay? But again, some of Yahweh's people will not be going to this place of safety. And the Antichrist will make war against them. So we're going to go to verse 17. "And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yeshua." Is it talking about just people that keep the commandments but reject Yeshua? Is it talking about people that accept Yeshua but reject the law? No, it's not talking about either one. Okay? We understand in a personal level that it's basically people like us will be in this section of people, this group of people. Okay? And that is who the Antichrist will be making war against. But I'm going to turn back to Daniel 11 again. Okay, Daniel 11, verses 33 through 35. It says, and those of the people who understand, because we're talking about they shall know their God, shall be strong, and carry out great exploits. And those of the people who understand, those of us who know our God, we know who we are. Okay? We know who our God is. Those of the people who understand shall instruct many, yet for many days they shall fall by sword, by flame, by captivity, and plundering. Now when they fall, they shall be aided with a little help. There will be people that will be there to help us. Okay? But many shall join with them by intrigue. There are going to be some that are going to, oh, I'm one of you. Yeah, they're not. What does it matter as far as we're concerned? Yes, they will join with us by intrigue. They may be some of the ones that are turning us over to the authorities. So be it. I keep thinking of the Apostle Paul, for instance, when he went to prison. What did he do? He preached the gospel in prison. He didn't matter where he was. He didn't let something like prison look at all the things that Paul went through. Shipwrecks, beatings, stonings, imprisonment. He went through all this and yet continued to preach the gospel. Will we be like that? It's a good question. Something to consider. So anyway, some shall join with them by intrigue, and some of those of understanding shall fall in order to refine them, to purify them, and make them white until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. The end is not yet. It's still yet in the future, even at this time. Okay? But again, Yahweh will turn this situation to be for, and I'm going to use the word our good. Okay? Now, again, same time period. Something else happens. This is also when the two witnesses come on the scene. And that's in Revelation 11, 1 through 10. We don't necessarily have to turn to that, but if you want to write that down, it's Revelation 11, 1 through 10. It talks about the ministry that they do, the preaching that they do. And I believe it was Daryl that mentioned the fact that they're going to be preaching the gospel, but I think that they're going to be preaching to us as much as to the world. And the reason I say this, the reason I'm saying this is because Malachi 4. Malachi 4. I want to read 1 through 6. There's only six verses in the chapter. He says, For behold, the day is coming, burning like an oven, and yes, all the proud, all who do wickedly, will be stubble. And the day which is coming shall burn them up, says the Yahweh of hosts, that will leave them neither root nor branch. But to you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings. And you shall go out and grow fat like stall-fed calves. You shall trample the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet on the day that I do this, says Yahweh of hosts. Remember the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. Okay, so they have they keep the commandments. He says, Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse. Is it possible one of these two witnesses might be Elijah? Possible. Is it possible that Elijah might be another individual besides the two witnesses? It's possible. But from what I read here, it sounds like Elijah is going to be here to preach. But the two witnesses will prophesy for 3.5 years. Now, then they will be killed. It says it in Revelation 11. But they're not killed by any human being. And they're not even killed by the beast himself, the Antichrist. This is a beast that comes from the bottomless pit. Now, is it Abaddon, Apollyon? Possible. No human can kill him. They said that fire comes out of his mouth to devour their mouths to devour their enemies. But it finally takes that, and I'm going to use the term high-ranking demonic involvement, to kill them. Everybody's going to throw a party. They're going to rejoice, give each other gifts and everything. Because these two individuals are finally dead. They've gone 3.5 years tormenting everyone. You know, we talked about the seals. When you actually look at the seals that were done, do you realize that every one of those is caused by mankind being led by Satan? The first 6 seals, that's what it amounts to. But we've reached the point now where the seals, the 7th seal is fixing to be opened. And the seventh seal is 7 trumpets. So everything is changing at this moment in time. With the abomination of desolation, everything changes. We're going from seals, which are man's basically trying to kill mankind, Satan trying to kill all of mankind, to all of a sudden God stepping in. He is coming in, and every one of the trumpets are supernatural. The things that we see in the trumpets. Okay? Also, the false prophet comes onto the scene, able to do miracles. This is in Revelation 13. Revelation 13, 11 through 18. 13. Says, I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. So the first one was the beast from the sea. It says, then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb. Interesting. Christ was the lamb slain from the foundation of the world. All of a sudden, we've got another lamb on the scene. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke like a dragon. And he exercises all of the authority of the first beast in his presence, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So he's going to be pointing that this is the Messiah. And he may even have all kinds of verses that he throws out to try to prove it. Okay? He performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast. It is 666. Now, here's something interesting. Let's go to the next chapter, Revelation 14. We're going to read 6 through 13. Okay. I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation, tribe, tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea, and springs of water. And another angel followed, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she has made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Then a third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If anyone worships the beast and his image, and receives his mark, the beast's mark on his forehead or on his hand, he himself shall also drink the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out full strength into the cup of his indignation. He shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever. And they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Again, we hear it. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Yeshua. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, Right, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works follow them. What we do is not going to be forgotten. But isn't it interesting that virtually the same time, I don't know if I actually... Okay, Revelation 3. I have to turn to this one because I forgot to write it down. Revelation 3. We'll cover this later on in the study. Starting in verse 12. It says, He who overcomes, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and I will write on him my new name. So these individuals will have 3 names written across their forehead. Isn't it amazing that that's kind of what the beast is doing? Imitating what God has already got planned, to have this mark of his people. So the beast has his mark of his people. Now, we know from Revelation 14, and this is, it talks about the Lamb and the 144,000. You go back to Revelation 7. Revelation 7, the sealed of Israel. We'll do it. Yep. After these things I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth or on the sea or on any tree. Then I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, Do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees until we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. And I heard the number of those who were sealed. 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel were sealed. Judah, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, and Joseph, and Benjamin. 12. Where's Dan? Where's the tribe of Dan? Why isn't it listed? There is reasons for that. But it's interesting that the tribe of Joseph was Ephraim and Manasseh. And Manasseh is technically listed twice. Once by itself and once under the tribe of Joseph. Now, here's what I believe. I'm saying it this way. Here's what I believe. What we know as the Gentiles are under the name Manasseh. Something to consider. Why would it be listed twice? Why would Manasseh be listed twice? If you actually look back in the Old Testament, when Joshua was fixing to go into the Promised Land, Okay? There were 3 tribes that approached Moses and asked if they could have land. Now, they were supposed to have the Jordan River as their boundary. Why was it 3 tribes went to Moses and says, may we have some of this land? It's not in the promised land, but may we have some of this? Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh. Now, I believe that that also is prophetic, without going off into a lot of things, because Manasseh was also given property within. Ephraim and Manasseh both had property within the boundaries of Israel. But Manasseh was one of 3 that was given property outside. Is it possible that all the way back to then, that Yahweh had the plans for the Gentiles? It's interesting, because it would kind of tie in with why would there be Manasseh listed twice? Those who are outside the camp are still a part of Israel. The Gentiles were always looked at by the Jews. They're outside of the camp. They're not a part of Israel. Yes, they are. Scripture shows it so plainly. But were the Gentiles allowed to do whatever they want to? No. They had to forsake all their gods, and they had to worship Yahweh and Yahweh only. And they had to live with the Israelites. They were not allowed to have any idols. They were not to have any unseen gods. But they had to live with the Israelites for them to be of the nation of Israel. We see that with the multitude that came out of Egypt with Moses. Okay, the mixed multitude. Mixed multitude, was it mixed in race? Undoubtedly. Was it mixed in lineage? Undoubtedly. Was it mixed maybe in nationality? Undoubtedly, because they were not of Israel. But you know something? They became a part of Israel. This is where the Gentiles, even yet today, it doesn't matter where you're from, as long as you have made the decisions to follow Yahweh. It doesn't matter where you're from. You become a part of Israel. And remember, the name Israel is different in meaning than Jacob. Because the word Jacob means one who supplants, one who takes over. But Israel means he will rule with God. And God's people have already been promised that. We will be kings and priests with Christ for that 1,000 years. We will be kings and priests. We will rule with Christ. So if you're a Gentile and you accept Christ and follow Him and are obedient to Him, you are Israel. Now, when the land is divided up, does that mean that you're just, I'm a Gentile, I don't have any land? I believe Manasseh and probably Gad and Reuben as well. You will be given land. You are a part of Israel at that point. Now, some of this is just conjecture. Some of this is just my feelings, my understanding, whatever. But just something to think about. Okay. So we know that the 144,000 are going to be sealed on their foreheads. We know that from Revelation 3 that God's people, those who overcome, will have a name written on their foreheads. But these are of Israel, not of Jacob. It doesn't say the tribes of the children of Jacob were sealed. No, Israel was sealed. Okay? Now, again, we're talking about it, the seventh seal. Okay, Revelation 8. Okay? When he opened the seventh seal. There was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Then another angel having a golden censer came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. Okay. If you saw fiery things coming out of the sky to the earth, you would probably think a meteor shower or maybe something even more dramatic. It says there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. So the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Now, I mentioned a little while ago about the 6 seals being from mankind and from Satan, and that the trumpets are from God. When it comes to the trumpets, the first 6 are physical things that happen, but the 7th is not. Okay. Is lunch ready? I mean, we're at a stopping point. We're kind of at the halfway point of my study. But okay. So we'll be back here shortly.